You have 3 voicemails.
It's one of the biggest issues that you have to think about when you want to have a family when you're gay, right? How do you want to have the kid?
Can we have a name for this person, please? So that we don't...
Let's just say my boyfriend. So if I break up with this one, I don't have to. You get to substitute that with anybody. She thought that my boyfriend induced me into the dark side.
Hello there.
Welcome to the show where we have the convos about Vietnam, you know.
Hello there. Welcome to Convo Comrades, a conversation with the community about Vietnam. This is the 3rd episode with our golden guest, Kien.
Woo!
In our first episode, we discovered Kien's journey into... in the first episode...
Oh my God. Into the world of LGBT. Alright, we're definitely going to keep this in. For some context, before we clicked record, Long was screaming out, "Are you guys all ready?" Alright, Long is clearly ready. Go on.
Alright, yes, let me do that again. Episode 1, we talked about Kien's journey when he grows up and the challenges that he faced, his self-discovery. And in the second episode, we dig deep. Yeah, that's right. We dug deep now. We dug deep into the LGBT concepts, diving into what each really meant, and just to provide a general high-level education to everyone who's involved, including myself. I learned a lot in the second episode, so check out those 2 episodes for some context, guys. And in this episode, we're going to talk about Kien's journey as a legal enthusiast.
Oh my God, that's probably the worst intro ever. Thank you so much, Long, big deep fan.
So wait, I need to finish that. This episode, we're gonna talk about Kien's career in law and how he found the transition moving back from the UK to Vietnam. And we begin.
So, Kien, it seems like you studied law in university. What brought you to the field?
My decision to do law was not really my own. I think I stumbled across it with some nudging from my dad. I think it was in A-level during my last year, picking out the options, what I wanted to do. What I initially wanted to do was psychology. I loved it. I was doing it for A-levels and I really wanted to do psychology. I think my dad didn't share the same enthusiasm that I have for psychology. One day he came up with this article, a news article, and then he was like, "Oh, look at this. The Prime Minister is saying their goal within the next 10 years is to have 50 lawyers who can participate in international trials for Vietnam." So great. I was like, okay, imagine how great this is if you can be one of the 50. Okay, do you want to do law? Like, okay, fine, let's do law. So I think that's how I did law.
That was relatively easy to convince you.
Yeah, I think I didn't really have anything that I was really passionate about except psychology. Psychology, I wasn't that passionate about. It was just something I was doing during my A-levels, and I enjoyed it as a subject. And I only enjoyed certain aspects of it, not everything about it. So really, I didn't have anything that I was super enthusiastic or passionate about. It was sort of a, much needed nudge really to give me a direction of what to do, because otherwise I think I would ended up doing something that every other Vietnamese people were doing. So, accounting and finance, and then business, and then economy.
Yeah, you took a stab at Long there, but okay.
I know. Like, those kind of things. And I think I would have hated it because I don't think I would have enjoyed doing accounting. I didn't enjoy doing law anyway, but I think I enjoyed it more than accounting.
It seems like you're more of a qualitative person than a quantitative person. Would you say so?
Wait, what's the qualitative? What's a quantitative person?
Okay, so you're not a qualitative person as well then. A qualitative person is like someone who deals with words and documents and essays, and quantitative is just with numbers and calculations.
That is actually, I've been a quantitative person. I think I'm still a very quantitative person. It's just that I didn't want anything to do with that anymore after my levels, because I was doing math since my third grade. So I was in like math specialized classes and schools ever since third grade. So and then physics. That's what I did for A levels as well. So throughout all that, I've been doing like natural science up until university, where I changed completely into law.
That's quite a seismic shift, isn't it?
I know. I think when I picked out my subjects for my A levels, so for context, I was doing maths, physics, psychology, and business studies. So I think math is just something that everybody does, right? So you have to do math. Physics was something that I was not the best at, but if I remember correctly, I was doing quite well in school before I made the move to the UK. So I think I that stayed on. Business studies, because I expected and contemplated that would be something that I'd be going into in university. So I chose that. And then psychology was just something that I felt fun doing. So I picked that out as a fourth one because I didn't want to do anything else. Yeah, so that's the reason why I was still doing math and physics until A levels, up until the point where I went to university. My parents are again, this is where they are quite conservative on. So they took the view that guys and men should be in natural sciences, right? Physics, chemistry, biology, math. So that's what they've been trying to get me to do since I was very small. So I was directed in that route, that math specialized route. I think I became not the best, but I was okay in that. So that I just kept doing it, right? But I don't think I enjoyed doing it. I didn't enjoy physics at all. I didn't enjoy math. I certainly didn't enjoy chemistry. So I didn't want anything to do with those things after A levels. So I knew for sure that I was moving into a social science for university. I just didn't know what. So that's when the question of what to do came into the picture. And funnily enough, though, psychology was counted as a natural science, as a science subject for university, for Warwick.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think me and my dad, we had disagreement on psychology, on the career prospects afterwards. So we couldn't agree on that. So I think we'll be on law. A lot of the people I met nowadays are, young kids, students. I tell people that I work at Baker McKenzie, and a lot of people wanted to talk about career. A lot of them take interest in law because of, these courtroom dramas, Suits, things like that. So it has that glamorous sort of appeal to it, right?
Yep.
I was not exposed to any of that at the point where I was picking out subjects for university, where I was do law. The only reason why I was doing law was that one news article that my dad randomly found. I think it was on the internet that he sent the link. So that came to me. I think a little bit of I didn't know what I really wanted to do, and my dad knew what he wanted me to do.
Okay.
So that he ended up doing law.
Okay, that makes sense. So law then. Law academically, let's go for that first before we go into the career. Can you break down the academic, components of law? What sort of law do you study? What types of different law courses?
I had a BA in Law and Business Studies. So it's a dual major. So I did both law modules and business studies modules. For law in the UK, if you want to have a qualifying degree in law, you have to do certain subjects. So I'm just going to look at my bookshelf and tell you what the subjects are. So I don't know, like tort law, contract law, lad law, administrative law. That's a list of them, criminal law, things like that. Yeah. So all of that you have to do if you want to have a qualifying degree in law. So I had to do all of that.
So it's quite broad across a number of areas.
Right. Yeah. That's right. I don't think you were supposed to be having a specialized area of law that you are focused on when you are doing a law degree in university in the UK, at least. You're supposed to be doing everything, and then you pick up and then you specialize afterwards.
How do you determine which area you want to specialize in then for your case?
I'm not passionate person at all when it comes to law. So I thought I was gonna do when I wrote my personal statement for university, right? I wrote about I want to be that one of those 50 international lawyers for Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
So I think throughout my law academic life, I picked out things that I think would be helpful for that.
Mm-hmm.
In university, you have to do everything, right?
Yeah.
But after university, I did the legal practice course, which is basically the lawyer's training course in the UK, and then I did a master's of law. So for my legal practice course, there are two parts. The first part is like lawyer's skill. You have to do everything. So they teach you a lot of things. It's the same for everyone. So accounting for solicitor, ethics, a bunch of things like business registrations and things like that.
Yep.
But then for the second stage, you're supposed to pick out 3 elections. So I think I picked out commercial law, alternative dispute resolution, and then something about international trade law. Because again, that's what I thought I would be doing to become one of the 50 international lawyers of Vietnam. But then somehow I didn't stick with that when I went joined Baker McKenzie. I joined Baker McKenzie and I was put on an M&A, which is fine because I also picked M&A as one of the things to study.
Yeah.
But then I think just by chance though, I was assisting my current supervisor with a random assignment, and she specialized in banking and finance. And afterwards, she kept me on, and we've been working together ever since. And it's been almost 5 years, and that's how I made the move from randomly doing things like trade law, like studying about trade law and dispute resolution and commercial, into actually doing banking and finance without having any background in banking and finance at all.
Okay.
So it was quite a weird move, to be quite honest. And it was a very challenging to make that move, especially because I just came back from the UK to Vietnam. And to be quite honest, the legal system between Vietnam and the UK are quite different. But I didn't have any training in Vietnamese law at all. So it was quite a difficult move to have that. And on top of that, going into a field in law that I have absolutely no knowledge about. So it took a lot of efforts, right? But yeah, with a lot of efforts and a lot of support, I got where I wanted to. Then I keep thinking about what I did in university and what I did in my postgrads degrees, right? If I knew that I was going to be doing banking and finance, I would have picked out my subjects and would have picked out my concentrated area differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, if you had known that, then you'd be rich. So it's fine.
Yeah.
At least you still study law. Okay, so there are so many questions that I have now. So, for example, the first one, you studied law in the UK, and then you went back to Vietnam to pursue a career in law, but it's in a slightly different area of law, right? In banking, finance, M&A.
Yeah.
It seems like there are two main differences here. The main difference in legislature, but also the main difference in industry. How do you cope with that?
Not well. I think actually with both of them, the only way to go is forward, really. You just have to grin and bear it and just try to learn as much as you can on the job, and then spend time, on your own free time trying to, it sounds cliche, but in your own time, try to get as much knowledge as you can. I think overall I'm a very lucky person. My supervisor, she was quite supportive. What she did was she made me proofread all of these advices. Right. So that's one of the way that as you proofread, you have to read the advice and see whether it makes sense. Right. And in doing that, you unconsciously get some, foundation knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's one of the way that she suggested that I could do to help with the transition. The change in industry was not that important. At the end of the day, it's still a difference in legislation and different in systems in law, which I didn't know anything in Vietnam anyway, because I didn't have any Vietnamese law background. So I don't think the change in industry would have made as much a difference as the change in the legal system, actually, because a lot of things operate differently. A lot of basic concepts are different between English law and Vietnamese law. So you kind of have to adapt and try to forget what you learn in the UK while you do law in Vietnam.
That's a shame. But okay, so you spent, was it 6 or 7 years of studying law in the UK?
6 years.
Okay, 6 years. How did it feel? I'm wondering, you coming back to get a job in Vietnam, did it feel like, I'm playing scenarios here, okay? On the one hand, you can feel like you're very intimidated because it's a completely different environment. You don't know anyone. It's a new language. It's a different language to the one that you're used to. And then on the other hand, you can feel like, I've got 6 years of education in one of the most prestigious countries in the world when it comes to education. And I've done 6 years of academic law experience, and my English is probably much better than most people in Vietnam. You know, that's the sort of feeling that you can get, right? I'm playing scenarios here. Where do you sit in that spectrum?
Oh, I can tell you, I've never felt anywhere close to the second scenario at all.
Okay.
I've always felt very, intimidated. I think up until today as well, I still think, because the foundations are different, right? To do law, you kind of need to have that foundation and that basic concepts. It's quite funny for me, who's been doing Vietnamese law for almost 5 years, to be saying this, but once in a while, I still feel that I'm still lacking some of that pieces of the foundation core principles of Vietnamese law.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a disadvantage I have against my colleagues, even people who are younger than I am. Now that I've built up for myself quite, a certain level of knowledge when it comes to Vietnamese law, but still, you need that foundation, right? For me, though, there is no other way to get it except, doing it on my own. I mean, of course, you can just, enroll in like these 9 classes and do a second degree or something, but I think that's too much work.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the foundations are very important because it affects your approach to the legislations as well. Because legislations are issued and are drafted based on the basic principles of law and on generally the regulators' view on certain things and the take on certain things, right? So for certain issues, that that's their view, even though it may be unclear.
Mm-hmm.
It may get too technical, but for example, Vietnam has very strict foreign exchange control. When you look at Vietnamese legislations on foreign exchange, you always have to keep that in mind because you know that they don't want you to be using foreign exchange. They want you to be using Vietnamese dong and control the use of foreign exchange, things like that. So that's what I've learned after a few years of working, and that's how I made myself think after a few years. Now, every time I look at legislations, especially when it comes to like unclear issues.
Okay.
But you don't have that in English law. So you have to learn to forget all of that.
I think that makes sense. I'm just trying to think here. So what's the advantage then of someone like you who have spent 6 years in the UK to study law and have come back to Vietnam over someone who spent all their lives studying law in Vietnam, aside from the language?
Oh, aside from the language? Oh,
okay, caught you off guard there.
I was going to say
the language.
But I want to tell you this, kids nowadays, really good. Like, the younger they get, the better the English.
In Vietnam or the ones going overseas?
In Vietnam.
Okay.
In Vietnam. Like, even though they have never went abroad to study at all, their English was really good.
Are they able to follow this conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Make sure you refer the podcast to them. Okay, sorry, continue.
Like, yeah, because we have to work about 85% of the time. Our work is in English. So when we try to get, batches of interns coming in and newcomers, we have to test them on English, right? And, they just keep getting better. That's what I feel. Like, the English keeps getting better. I had an intern who was born in 2001.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. And I asked her about her IELTS. Just like randomly, I was asking her about her IELTS. So the English was really good. So she was in her second year in university when she was interning. So I asked, have you done your IELTS? And she said, oh no, I haven't done my IELTS since like 11th grade. How much did you get? Like what grade? I think she got like an 8 or something in 11th grade.
Whoa.
And then I was complimenting her, and she said, oh, it's a normal thing. Like everybody's getting that. So I was like, wow. So yeah.
I had an 8.
Really? When?
I could be your intern. Also, when I was 11th grade. So yes, same with her.
Kid is so lost for words now.
I don't know what to say to that.
You know, like you can bring him in. Yeah, you can bring him in as your intern, and then he can play with that colleague of yours. They can make beats.
Yeah, I think my colleague would really enjoy that. But yeah, I had that language edge over some of my colleagues, a little bit of an edge, but I don't think I have much of that now. Aside from that, I can't really think of anything that's given me.
Am I right? Am I right to say that you're dissuading parents now from sending their kids overseas to pursue a law degree if it means that studying in Vietnam will be more advantageous if they're going to pursue a career in law in Vietnam? Am I right to say that?
What I'm saying is, if you know that you will immediately move back to Vietnam to practice law, then I think you shouldn't go to the UK or the US to study law.
That's quite a statement.
Is that your case?
Yeah,
but it seems logical.
Yeah, but I think the edge that I may have over some of my colleagues are, the language, which is, people keep getting better. And that's it. And then...
Is there any skill set edge? So, for example, in the UK, the education system will force you to be more critical, more debatable in your thinking, not accepting things for what they are. Do you sense that at all, or no?
No, I don't think so. I think critical thinking, it's a learned skill that you will learn quite quickly. If you work in legal, you will be required to have that. So if I were management, I would have to be certain that, this person I'm hiring has a certain level of, critical thinking skill. I have never felt, or maybe it's just me who's lacking it, but I have never felt any edge over my colleagues in terms of critical skills. If any, I would say most of our clients are, foreign entities, right? So the fact that I've spent so much time abroad gave me a much more comfort in, combination with clients. So, you're more comfortable with the culture, you're more knowledgeable of the culture, you know what to say, you know how to liaise with the clients and communicate with the clients. And, clients are people too, right? They're not just your client. When they give you work, when you work together, then yes, it's a client. But a career in law is more than just, churning out legal advices after legal advices, right? There's a client management aspect to that. So you are required to communicate and client manage. And sometimes you have to socialize with clients as well. So I think if I have to say one thing that studying abroad gave me an edge over my colleagues, and I think I am more comfortable in doing that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and the fact that I've been abroad for quite some time gave me more things to talk about when I'm put in that situation, right? Because
you're able to build that rapport.
Yeah, exactly. So you can tell, you have more of a story to tell, really, right? Yeah. When you are put in that situation, because I'm sure when you have to socialize and have to make small talk, sometimes you're dying for that topic to talk about, but sometimes you just can't find one. But I think for me, because I have such a, let's say, interesting background, so I think it gave us plenty of things to talk about.
Yeah. For example, like over the weekend, you attended a podcast.
I know, this is one of the things I want to be talking about the next time I'm talking to a client. So
how was your weekend? Oh, it was great. I was just the podcast guest of this prestigious podcast.
Golden guest.
Yeah. 50 million
Convo,
views
Comrades.
each episode. Okay, cool. Can you not laugh at that?
I want to ask something.
Okay, go ahead, Dale.
Did you ever consider a career in law in the UK?
I thought about that, but I've never really pursued that seriously. So I've never really... I think if I really wanted to have that, I would have played out my education career much differently. So I think the first few years of my bachelor degree, I think I was just trying to survive, like, let's just get this bachelor degree done and then go home and do what I want, right? And then I thought, let's look into that option of having a legal career in the UK. Then that would have been too late, because to get a legal career in the UK, it's very competitive, and then there's a lot of things with it, not just the rates, but internships, work experience, etc. Open days, and then connections and networking. I'm really quite a lazy person, so I think by the time that I thought about that, that would have been a bit too late.
Yeah.
And then that combined with the fact that that's just too much work. So I just kind of like half-assing doing it. I think I submitted like 2 or 3 applications, but obviously I didn't get any offer. So I just came back.
Mm-hmm. And so you went through the academic journey. Now you're working in legal. What's something that really hasn't met your expectation? Because you mentioned, a lot of people are influenced by the media. They look at all these barristers banging the table, jumping up. I object, Your Honor. What is something that, when you're actually in the industry now, you realize, it's not something that I expected?
I think that may be one of them, right? Because you look at these, a lot of people are exposed to that image of being a lawyer. You are in the courtroom, objection, things like that, or that thrill, that excitement of, trying to outplay your counterparty, things like that.
Yeah.
But one, it exists in very limited fields of law. And even if in that case, I don't think it's going to be that exciting. So you have to prepare for that disappointment, because I work in banking and finance, right? So most of the time I'm just writing advices and reading contracts, and that's it. In banking finance, so say example, usually people use standard templates of the Loan Market Association. So there's not much of a negotiation, right? Because it's standardized and then clauses are standard and the market practice. So there's not a lot of negotiation, or there's not a lot of
debating and arguing and
there is still negotiation, but mostly it's just commercial, and you work it out with the counterparty. But most of the time there is no trying to outplay your counterparty or whatever. There's none of that thrill, that excitement. It's just a lot of manual work. It's just a lot of manual, boring work. And I think people should be prepared for that if you think about Korean law, because very likely you will be doing a lot of boring manual work.
Okay, thanks for being frank about that, because obviously, I appreciate that probably some of the listeners are considering a Korean law as well, and it's important to look past the glamour that is shown on TV to be realistic about the industry. Okay, so Long, your favorite topic now. How Kien met his partner. Do you want to ask?
Yes, I do want to ask. How do you meet your partner?
Not robotic at all. So we, as I've shared, we work in the same law firm. It's just that I work from the Hanoi office and he works from the Ho Chi Minh City office.
Can we have a name for this person, please? So that we don't...
Let's just say my boyfriend. So if I break up with this one, I don't have to... you get to substitute that with anybody. So like I mentioned just now, before I joined Baker McKenzie, well, what I did was a lot of dispute resolution modules and courses, right? I actually interned at the Vietnam International Arbitration Center. So that's kind of what I thought I was going to be doing.
That's kind of close to your one of the 50 guys.
Yes, I know. That's a career path that I was sure I was going to be doing. And then I joined Baker and I was put in, banking and finance. I was happy with that. I was happy doing banking and finance. It was nice. But, I thought about, what if I just try to have that dispute resolution as a side gig? So I sign up for dispute resolution group and be like, if you have anything you want me to assist with, then just let me know. Blah blah blah. So I think the head of the practice group back then, she had this idea for internal training on dispute resolution. So and my boyfriend works in dispute resolution. So she divided us into groups. And then we're supposed to be presenting on certain issues when it comes to dispute resolution. So there's a lot of things. But I think we were put together and we're supposed to be doing arbitration and mediation. So we started working on that, and then that's how we knew each other. We started working and I think it was just very briefly though, and we didn't really get much contact done back then. But then that's how I knew of his existence and we knew each other's existence. I think a few years later, we had this retreat, this firm-wide retreat. So traditionally, for Baker McKenzie, when we have our retreat, we will break the employees into teams. Then you have to prepare a performance. And then we were also put in the same team. And then we were elected the team leader. So I was put as a team leader for Hanoi, and he was put a team leader for Ho Chi Minh City. So we have to work together to work out a script and performances. Sounds like that night. So yeah, and we started talking a lot, and it's more casual, right? When it comes to like you talk about scripts and like what to dance, what to do, what to sing to. So it started getting more casual, and then we started to talk more, and then one thing led to another. Yeah,
things got heated. Okay,
in the microwave.
I'm wondering, how do you know if the other person has the same sexual orientation as you?
When you have been gay for so long, you have that radar, I think. I go in life by this approach where I take people by what they say they are, right? So if you come to me and tell me that, oh, you are straight, then I will just take your words for it. I will just think of you as straight. Doesn't matter what I've heard or what, how you present yourself to be, right? And I also always work on the assumption that someone is straight until they tell me otherwise.
Straight until proven otherwise.
Yeah, until they tell me otherwise.
To use the legal term.
So I think when we first talked, I didn't think of him as like a potential romantic interest or anything. He was just a really fun colleague to be talking to.
I'm so sorry. I'm so confused now. You said there was some sort of radar. Your radar wasn't working.
Yeah, but I was going into that, and then at one point, we added each other on Facebook, right? That's when you started to go naturally. After you have someone on Facebook, you have to do some snooping. So I look at his photos and be like, okay, this guy may be gay, just that. And then at that point, he was still... Ooh, what if? But at that point, though, I think I still thought of him as just a very fun colleague to be talking to. Because I think I was still dating other people. Dating as in go on dates with other people back then. And we talk about those kind of things like very openly. And I think, for a very long time, we were just very good colleagues. But when you look through a person's Facebook and you look at his posts and what he shares, what he likes, you can kind of form a impression.
Initial hypothesis.
On this person's sexuality. So that's what I thought after the Facebook ad and after a lot of conversation. I don't think he's ever told me that, oh, hey, I'm gay. You have ways of telling people that you're gay without having to tell people that you're gay, right? You can say, oh, I have a date on Grindr today or something. That implies that you're gay. You don't have to be like, hey, I'm gay. I don't remember what exactly that he said, but I think one of the things that he mentioned was something like that. After that, And
his colleagues in Ho Chi Minh City, they were all aware of this before you guys started talking, is it? Or
I think it depends. You know how Vietnamese, not just Vietnamese people, but a lot of people are quite oblivious to. A lot of people doesn't have that good of a gaydar, right?
I think one of those people are in this conversation right here.
Like for long, right? His gaydar is okay, but he doesn't know how to talk about these issues. But a lot of people that I've met, the gaydar is really bad. I think it's from the lack of education and exposure to the community. But for my boyfriend though, people keep telling me that they can't really tell if they just like hang out with him for not too long. So I think not a lot of people knew before we started to like very openly date. I don't think he's in the closet or anything really, because after we date, I don't think he had to like come out or anything. It's quite People just knew that we were dating.
And he's based in Ho Chi Minh City, right?
That's right.
So this is sort of a long distance relationship then.
Yeah.
Although there's no time zone differences, so that's a
Funny
plus.
thing though, I think I've always thought of long distance relationship as a deal breaker, and I think I've broken many deals because of the fact that it's going to be a long distance relationship. I don't think any of those have been a Hanoi Ho Chi Minh City. Let's just say medium distance, but it has always been a deal breaker for me actually. And it's a lot of work. It still is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I think I did tell my boyfriend before we even dated. I said, I don't do long distance. I just generally as a side note, I don't do long distance, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think after a while, I don't know what happened though, but after a while I agreed to it, and 2 years later, it's been so long.
Colleagues with benefits then?
More than benefits, with spousal benefits and privilege.
Wait, what? Spouse already?
I will keep saying that we have spousal privilege because,
Okay.
you can't testify against other person when you go to court if you are spouses.
And what's it like being an openly gay person in a corporate environment in Vietnam?
It's an interesting question. It depends on the workplace, all right? This sounds like a promotion for my firm, but in Becker, we are committed to provide a inclusive and
Yo, Kien,
diverse...
can you maintain eye contact? You're reading off some screen.
Hey, boss, if you're listening, I didn't know this until quite recently when I joined some of the initiatives, but Becker McKenzie committed to provide diverse and inclusive environments. I think that's the general environment in Becker is quite, I wouldn't say homophobia free, but it's, LGBT friendly.
Yeah.
So for me and for gay people for LGBT people in our firm, there's no need to censor yourself or to, I mean, you still have to keep certain things out to keep that professionalism, right?
Yeah.
But there's no need to be in the closet or conceal or other than a personal choice.
That's great.
Yeah. So you don't feel compelled at work to conceal that unless you want to, and then it's a different thing. Yeah. But our firm wouldn't make you so that you have to conceal it. I can't speak for other workplaces though, and I know of a few workplaces I've heard which are quite unfriendly actually, and you have to be in a closet there, and I would imagine that that's going to be quite horrible.
I mean, the hypothesis here is if you're an international firm, then you tend to be more receptive towards this because normally these sort of policies would trickle down from group, right? But those sort of corporate environments that you're referring to, do they tend to be more Vietnamese-based local firms?
Not really, no.
Based on the stories that you've heard?
The stories that I've heard is from an international firm.
Oh, bloody hell. Okay.
Yeah, so that is not... But we have a lot of international firms which are very committed to providing that as well. So like KPMG, PwC are very active in the LGBT cause.
Yeah.
But still you have a lot of other firms that I've heard stories of that are not as friendly or worse, it's a bit unfriendly. So I think it depends on the workplace and the attitude, and I think it comes down to the attitude and the approach of management, right? If management takes the view that it has to implement a zero tolerance policy for discrimination, then the workplace will, not automatically, but naturally there will be a shift in the stance of people, right? Even if people themselves are, homophobic, but there wouldn't be any of that blatant hostility that I've heard of some other, workplaces.
Yeah.
So I think for the workplace, the most important thing is, your colleagues can be supportive, but you can't make everybody be supportive of you, right? So to have that environment, a safe environment, it comes down, the most important thing, it has to come down from management attitude towards the issue.
And another aspect I want to ask is, how about dating a colleague? So in my company, I need to read up on my conduct policy, but I think this is something not encouraged. So dating someone in your same team, for example, because it affects with your objectivity, right, and
Yeah.
how you interact and work.
Yeah.
But your boyfriend is not in the same team
No.
as yourself.
No, we're not in the same team. I will have to check our policy as well. But as far as I know, we do not have a policy that prevents what's the word? Inter-office dating? Dating within the office.
Yes.
I don't think there's any policy against that. We used to have a joke that our management, our director, he was joking about how if you get married within the firm, then he will give the couple a double-sided fridge, and it has happened before. So it's So in a sense, you can interpret that as encouraged, right? Because you get incentive for getting married within the firm.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything that prohibits people from dating within the office.
So that's within the office. What about family-wise?
Family-wise, what do you mean?
So do your parents have a view in terms of you dating a colleague?
No, I don't think so. They have more view of me dating a man than a colleague.
Okay. So it's less so about someone within the company.
Yeah.
They're not worried about, lapse of concentration or whatnot.
No. I think the fact that my boyfriend is a boy has taken up all of their attention from everything else.
So how are your parents' reactions or responses these days to your boyfriend now? Because you obviously told me that story, right? When we were in Vietnam.
Oh, my dad. I still don't mention my boyfriend in front of my dad, right? My mom, when she first found out, she hated my boyfriend. She thought that my boyfriend induced me into the dark side. So she never said this to me, but she told my sister this. Yeah. And then she told my sister this, and she's like, oh my God, what's the word? He induced my son and made him choose the wrong path, that bastard. And my sister was like, why are you calling him a bastard? And she's like, he's a bastard. And my sister was like, no, don't call him a bastard. I think my mom is a bit better now because she's come to accept the fact that I'm gay a bit. I think at the back of her mind, she still had that wishful thinking that, I would somehow, one day wake up and turn straight. And it's entirely possible, right? That one day I would wake up and, fall in love with a girl. So she has that wishful thinking, but I think she has more or less accepted that fact now. But she still doesn't really like my boyfriend much. I think it's still from the fact that, it hinders my progress of turning back to the light, things like that.
Mm-hmm. And have they met recently?
Recently, no.
Are they going to meet anytime in the next, I don't know, near term?
What is near? Give me a time period.
6 months' time.
Oh, no, not 6 months.
Not 6 months. Okay. I think
I was thinking 5 years maybe.
Are you being real or is that sarcastic?
No. I mean, I want everything I say to be safe. So a safe estimation would be 5 years. I think within the next 5 years, it's very likely that they will meet, right? Not my dad.
But then I thought earlier in the podcast, you said that you're reaching an age where you want to start thinking about having kids.
Exactly. So I was going to say 5 years. I mean, 5 years. I'm young, right? I'm 28. 5 years is what? 33? It's not bad. So yeah.
You want to have kids?
I do want to have kids, yes.
All right, this is the 4 hour. This is the 4 hour Lord of the Rings movie. All right, Kien, you can go have a nap. I'm just going to make some coffee and tea, and we can come back to the podcast and then Long to continue.
Okay. Let me do your work for you, Long.
Oh my God, no. Long's face is so red right now. Oh my God.
Let me elaborate on my answer then. I want to have kids. But again, this is one of the issues for gay people, right? Because how do you have kids, right? Yeah. So it's quite difficult because it's something that you have to think about. I don't think I'm gonna ever let my boyfriend listen to the podcast. It's a difficult issue, and it's one of the biggest issues that you have to think about when you want to have a family when you're gay, right? Do you want to have kids? Do your partner want to have kids? How do you want to have the kid? If you both want kids, how are you having it if one of you don't want kids then, right? It's a lot of communication. So the first thing you have to do is to communicate all of these things with your partner and set expectation. I personally want to have kids. I think my boyfriend also wants to have kids. We knowing us, right? We never really talk about these things because it's too serious for us. We are both quite. I think it's our defense mechanism. We don't talk about serious things.
I'll help you. Mr. Boyfriend, can you comment down in the YouTube video what you think? Because Kien's already shared his perspective.
He's not going to listen to this podcast. Don't let him. But yeah, I want to have kids, but I don't want to have kids before me and my boyfriend officially become a family, right? Because I know a lot of people who just have kids now, and then, after a while, you meet the person you want to, settle down with, and you sort that out between yourself. I don't want to do that. I want us to be a family first before we have the kid. Kid, and then bracket S bracket. But then that follows with, how do you have that? And then whose kid's going to be? With the assumption that by that time, science remains the same. You can't, create a kid out of the DNA of two men. Then how do you have that kid, right?
Can you help? Yeah, can you provide the different options so that it helps along to figure out?
I mean, that's an option, right? You take the specimen of one of you guys and then mix it with the specimen of another woman.
Yeah.
But then biologically, that would be the kid of only one of you, right? So then it's an issue. Then you keep asking, then, would the other person really think of that as his kid?
It gets complicated, huh? Yeah.
It gets a bit complicated, right? That's another option, though. You can. I know a couple who goes by the one each option, right? You get one kid for each person.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
But then the question still remains: can you love them as your own? Then obviously you will say that yes, I can. But when it really comes down to that, will you be able to do that? It's a lot to think about. And I mean, I want to have kids, but I don't want to have kids before me and my boyfriend have been able to, assuming that we are settled down. I don't want to have kids before we can settle all of that questions to the satisfaction of both of us.
And there's also adoption, as Cam and Mitchell in Modern Family.
Exactly, there's adoption, but I wouldn't prefer adoption.
Yeah, I remember that episode when they were discussing, to choose specimen from who and, and things like that. But I don't know if there is such a service. So you need to find a woman.
Yeah.
And you need to have her for 9 months, right? Is that how it works?
I think it depends on the arrangement. I just say in Vietnam, it's not legal in Vietnam. You have to do it elsewhere, I think.
I think it's legal in Thailand, isn't it?
I think it's legal in Thailand. So a lot of people do it in Thailand. There's a lot of different options. As far as I know, I just want to give you a few options I've heard of. Obviously, I've never used any of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's true, and I've never discussed these issues with the people that were doing it. But I heard about these options. So the first one is Thailand. So you go to Thailand, and I think you just pick out one of them. And then they take a specimen, and then 9 months later, they give you the child. Right? I'm not sure if during that 9 months you will have to have any sort of maintenance work, but that's how it works.
Yeah.
In the US, there's another option, like you see in Modern Family, where you just fill out adoption. But that's adoption. You fill out adoption papers, and then the mom will choose from the applications. And if she picks you when she gives birth, you get the kids, right? And then obviously there's the option where you just find a woman who agrees to do it for you, and you put specimen there, and then and then you whatever the arrangement between you guys is, and then when she gives birth, that's your kid. But there's a lot of legal issues that comes with it. To be honest, I haven't considered from the legal side of that, but there's a lot of issue that comes with it.
Have these conversations been had with your mum? I'm sure not with your dad, but with your mum?
Not with my mom, no. I think with my mom, the furthest extent that we've had is I just said, if you want a kid, it can be arranged. Because, if my dad gives me the ultimatum, or if my parents, for that matter, gives me the ultimatum, right, you have to have a kid, then, it can be arranged, right? It's not like asking me to, become invisible or to know how to fly. It's possible and it's doable, right? It's just a lot of, it's a hassle, and then there's a lot of work to be done. It's expensive, and then it doesn't really go with my plan of, settling down first and have a kid, but that can be done. So I think that's the furthest as we've gotten with my mom. So I say, the kid is not an issue, because if the ultimatum, if I really need to have one, if my parents really need to have one, I think it can be quite easily arranged.
Okay. Have you ever spoken to your partner's parents?
I've met them as my partner's colleague when we went to the US.
Oh, they're in the US?
They are, yes.
Oh, they're not in Ho Chi Minh City?
No.
Okay. And did they call you a bastard afterwards or what?
Not in my face, but I'm sure they called me bastard, among themselves.
Is he experiencing, the same situation as you, or is the family receptiveness slightly different?
I don't think he told his dad yet.
Okay, so it's quite similar to you.
Quite similar. So I think, this is why I'm quite thankful for this boyfriend, because we get the other person's situation quite well, right? Because we are generally in the same situation, and he's also Vietnamese. He's American Vietnamese, but he's Vietnamese. So like we said previously, in a Vietnamese family, the dynamics are quite different to that of an American, an American family, right? Yeah. So I can't imagine if I dated a person who's not Vietnamese, or for the lack of a better description, Asian, with the same sort of expectations and values. Would my boyfriend then be understanding of my responsibilities towards my families or not, if you catch what I'm saying?
Yeah. Does he have any siblings?
He has one older brother.
And the elder brother, are they on the same page?
No, he's straight. On the same page.
Yeah, but are they aware of the situation? I'm sure they are.
I'm not sure, actually. I'm actually not sure. I don't think we talked about his brothers a lot. I don't talk about my sister a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's all of my questions. I just have one final question from my end. We've asked you a lot about the topic of LGBT and what it's like for you through your experience in the UK, as well as coming back to Vietnam. What is the one question that we have not asked, but you would like to answer?
I think I was going to say this, but then I think I drifted off as per usual. It goes with studying law in the UK, right? Mm-hmm. I get this question a lot. Should I study law in the UK? We discussed it briefly back then. If you are certain that you will, after, doing your law degree, you will immediately go back to Vietnam to work, then you probably shouldn't be pursuing that. But then there's another aspect to that as well. So I think looking back at my entire academic career, right, law academic career, I think the entire process was a failure. I think if I had known better, I would have done things differently. So we talked a bit about how I said if I knew that I was going to think about staying in the UK afterwards, then I would have did my bachelor differently, right? That's what I want to say. So before you commit to a course, then think about what you expect to get out of it and what you want. And is it really necessary to your career development and your career path, right? So take my bachelor, for example. If I knew that I was gonna apply to be in the UK, I would have, focused more on studying. I would have, tried to get more placements, more work experience, and really put my mind into that. Right. You both went through all that, so you know the drill, right? You have to do all these applications and then open days, and then since year 1, year 2, right?
Yep.
After that, it comes to my postgraduates, where I went straight into doing the legal practice course, and then I went straight into doing a master's. I think if I was doing my master's now and my legal practice course now, I would have gotten so much more out of it than I did that back then, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have any insight into the legal career. I didn't have any insight into what you do as a legal practitioner at all.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know, what all of these works. Because, for example, the legal practice course, right? They make you do all of these forms, make you do all these board minutes, things like that. And I didn't know what all of these are for.
Yeah.
So if I knew what I was going to be doing afterwards, if I had that 5 years of experience now and then going to doing a legal practice course and the master's, obviously I would have chosen my subjects, my modules differently, right? And then I would have gotten so much more out of it instead of having a bunch of random knowledge on commercial and trade law and not using them at all. And then I would have known, what's the implication, the impact of the things that they're teaching us to be doing. Then, right? So, because I have a lot of people asking me, should I be doing a master's? Should I be doing a legal practice course? Should I doing that, straight after the bachelor degree? I always tell them, don't go straight. If you can, don't go straight into doing that. Have a few years of working first and then see what you really like. See if the area of law that you are doing is really the one that you want to be doing. If not, what would that be? What would you want to be? Or what would you want to know more about? Or if you really want to be doing law at all. Because if I was doing a master's, I wouldn't be doing master's in law. I don't think it helps with the professional. Because what I want to be is to work for a law firm, right? So I don't think a master's really help with that. Unless you want to be going to academic to teach or to be a researcher, then it's a different story.
I'm going to be an arsehole here and I'm going to play devil's advocate. To what extent do you think that having your master's and your other degree helped you to get your career in Baker McKenzie in the first place?
I think it helped. I think it gives my profile that boost, right?
Yeah, an impression, right?
Yeah. This guy, he did that. He had a bachelor and then he has a master's at the LPC. So obviously that would give me, I guess, an edge when it comes to the selection process.
Yeah.
But then I can't really say that, without that, I wouldn't be able to get a career at Baker McKenzie, right? Or at all, because it doesn't have to be at Baker McKenzie, right? It can be at, anywhere. You should spend a few years, working and really figure out what you want to do or what you want for yourself before committing to that next, higher level of education.
To be more laser focused on your topic of choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so last two questions. So Kien, this is our golden guest signature question here. If you could go back in time and tell your younger self one sentence, when would you go back and what would you say?
I think I would go back to myself in 2010. That's my first year in university, and tell me what I shared just now. Figure out what you want to do in life 5 years from now, and then, act accordingly.
I see. And the last question that we had for you is if you have anyone that you would recommend to be a golden guest on our podcast.
Anyone? It doesn't have to be, it has to be realistic, right?
Well, you can recommend Kien or Chipo if you want. But no, normally like the criteria is pretty straightforward, right? It's someone who can speak English and has knowledge of a pocket of area in Vietnam.
Okay, if I have to recommend one person to be on your podcast, I think I would recommend my boyfriend, actually.
I'm surprised you took that long to choose a boyfriend. I thought that would just be an immediate suggestion.
No, because you know what? Because this is what I don't think that I do well enough. I don't put myself in people's shoes often enough. Because I know all about my boyfriends, right? So I don't think there's anything about him that I would find interesting now, because I know everything now, right? There's nothing that I will be like, that's so interesting, because I know everything. But then now that I think about it, I think it's quite interesting, a video. Yeah. How does it feel, settling in Vietnam and his perspective on that?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Definitely.
Thank you. Look, Kien, thank you so much for being our golden guest. I mean, we've spoken to each other for 3 hours, and it has been absolutely eye-opening and very educational, especially for me. Long, how do you feel?
Yes, very, very eye-opening. Is it head-opening or brain-opening?
No, it's eye-opening.
Oh my
Right.
God, that's why I'm rounding up the podcast. And yeah, thank you so much for playing a role as well in raising awareness and, educating our listeners and the rest of the community more about the LGBT community. That's all of our podcasts with Kien. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Convo Comrades. We're on all possible podcast platforms: Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. As for now, bye-bye.